Mrs. Delgado, get back! Are you Delgak? Are you both all right?
The first thing I noticed was that someone was holding my hand, which was weird, because I was pretty sure I was dead. Dead people didn't usually have warm fingers tangled with theirs, at least, I hoped not. I tried pulling my hand away. The other hand tightened immediately. Don't. The voice was low, gentle, exhausted. I frowned, or tried to. Something on the right side of my face pulled so hard it felt like my skin had been stitched to the pillow. Ow! The room smelled like antiseptic. Monitors beeped somewhere to my left. My throat felt like I'd swallowed sandpaper. Hospital, great. That explained the headache. It did not explain the man asleep in the chair beside my bed. White hair. Black jacket draped over the back of the chair. One hand still wrapped around mine, like he'd fallen asleep, refusing to let go. Ren? Nothing. Still unconscious from exhaustion by the look of him. Dark circles under his eyes. Hair like he'd run both hands through it 1,000 times. Ren Ashworth cared entirely too much about looking good. Normally his hair belonged in a shampoo commercial. Now it looked like it had personally lost a fight. A nurse walked in carrying a clipboard. Froze the second she saw my eyes open. Oh, you're awake. Water? She helped me sip from a cup. Still hurt. Less, though. How long? You've been unconscious for 6 days. 6. I looked at Ren, then at her. He's still here? She looked confused. Of course. He refused to leave. Slept here every night. Argued with security when they tried making him go home. Signed half your medical paperwork because your father wasn't answering his phone. My brain stopped working. My father? He visited once. The words were gentle, almost apologetic. He had to leave for a business meeting. Of course he did. I don't know why that still managed to hurt. Maybe because some tiny, stupid part of me had genuinely believed almost dying might finally make me interesting enough to stay for. Apparently not. But Mr. Ashworth never left, the nurse said and smiled, and left us alone. I looked back at Ren. Still asleep. Still holding my hand. Like if he let go, I'd disappear. That was ridiculous. Ren didn't even like me that much. Sure, he'd spent 3 months trying to date me. Coffee, concert tickets, a car nobody sane buys someone before a first date. But people liked my face. People liked my money. People liked the idea of me. Nobody liked me. Then Ren stirred. His eyes opened slowly, like he couldn't believe I was awake. Kai? His voice cracked. Actually cracked. I'd never heard it do that. He leaned forward so fast the chair nearly tipped. Oh, thank God! Then he smiled. Not the confident smile. Not the flirting smile. Just relief. Pure relief. My stomach twisted. Something felt wrong, not in the room, in me, because he was looking directly at my face. I hadn't seen it yet. Nobody had let me, which meant he had. He knew what was under the bandages, and he was still smiling at me like nothing had changed. Poor idiot. He probably thought I didn't know yet. I almost felt bad for him. He was about to be very disappointed. But that's getting ahead of myself. 11 weeks earlier, I was the most insufferable rich boy in the entire city. And honestly, I would have hated me too. Being attractive is wildly overrated. Nobody believes me when I say that, mostly because they're too busy looking at my face to listen. Case in point, I hadn't made it through the gates of Blackwood Conservatory before a girl stepped into my path, pretty, rehearsed, and clearly ready. Kai, I just wanted to say I think you're really handsome. I know. She blinked. I blinked back. Okay, she said, and left. No footsteps behind me. No voice. 30 seconds later, Noah caught up carrying 2 iced coffees, and the expression of a man who'd just watched a car crash in slow motion. That's it. She was flirting with you. I thanked her. You thanked her. I gave her my number too. Student council directory. Noah closed his eyes. You accidentally rejected her so hard she doesn't even know she's been rejected. That sounds efficient. That night I closed the recital. 300 people, parents, sponsors, critics, people who loved music, people who loved being seen loving music. I sat, adjusted the bench 2 centimeters, and everything disappeared. Just the piano. My mother used to say if you're thinking about the audience, you're already playing for the wrong people. It was one of the only things she ever taught me that my father couldn't turn into a business lesson. Standing ovation. Again. Backstage, nobody was waiting for me. No mother. No father. Just Mr. Graves, holding my coat with his usual impossible posture. The car is ready. Did you enjoy the recital? I've attended 37 of them. They're becoming increasingly inconvenient. It's getting difficult to pretend I'm surprised. Despite myself, I smiled. 300 people had stood for me tonight, and somehow I'd never felt more alone. My father was waiting in the study when we got home, which alone should have counted as a natural disaster. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows, nothing personal. No photos of Mom, just success. You played well. A beat. The investors were pleased. Not I'm proud of you, not congratulations, just the investors. They understand these performances build relationships, he said. They secure the future. Funny. My mother said music gave life meaning. My father thought it improved quarterly reports. Same piano. Different religion. You'll attend the summer gala. There will be shareholders. Not people. Assets, not a son. A representative. You represented the family well tonight, he said as I left. Family. Interesting choice of word. Mr. Graves was waiting outside. One look at my face. Tea? The expensive one? The very expensive one. Halfway to the kitchen, he said without looking at me. You played your mother's favorite piece tonight. You noticed. I always notice. Your father noticed the standing ovation, not the music. One day, he said quietly, someone will hear the difference. I didn't know it yet, but he was right on schedule. The next morning, Noah walked into breakfast without knocking, stole a piece of bacon, and dropped a bomb between bites. The Ashworths are coming. Their youngest son is moving in for the summer. Business partnership. I wasn't consulted. You think your father consults humans? Fair. They say every single person who meets him likes him. They clearly haven't met me. Noah grinned like Christmas had come early. I genuinely don't know which one of you is going to win. There isn't a competition. There absolutely is. I had no idea how right he was. 3 black cars came up the driveway at exactly 3 o'clock, because my father didn't believe in emails, apparently, only in sending them. Mr. Ashworth stepped out first. Expensive suit, confident enough to own 3 countries. Behind him, someone climbed out carrying a single black duffel bag. No assistance, no stack of suitcases. He thanked the driver. Actually thanked him. White hair. Not old, naturally white, silver where the sun caught it. Tall, effortlessly put together. He looked up, found me, and smiled like he'd just found something he'd been looking for. Uh-oh, Noah whispered. I think he knows you. I don't know him. I don't think that's going to matter. He walked straight toward me, stopped 1 step away. You really don't remember me. Not a question. Should I? When we were kids, you were 9. You played piano. You told me to go away. That does sound like me. He laughed, not offended, actually amused. I deserved it. I interrupted your practice. Then you probably deserved it. I did. He nodded seriously. I thought you were amazing. You developed a crush because I told you to leave. I never said it made sense. He offered his hand. I'm Ren Ashworth. Kai. I know. Right. Do you always smile this much? He didn't miss a beat. Only when you're around? I stared at him for a long moment. Then said the only reasonable thing. You should probably get that checked. Behind me, Noah completely lost the fight against his laughter. Even Mr. Graves coughed suspiciously into his fist. Ren just laughed, like I'd made his day. For the first time in years, someone had responded to my indifference by enjoying it. And although I'd never admit it out loud, I found that just a little bit interesting. By breakfast the next morning, the staff had already adopted him. Mrs. Delgado, who hadn't laughed at one of my jokes in 3 years, was laughing at Ren wearing an apron he had no business wearing. He cracked an egg onto the chandelier, she informed me, delighted. You can't cook. I can order food. That's not cooking. It's adjacent. That afternoon I found him at the piano, having watched, by his own admission, 6 tutorials. What song is that supposed to be? Originally, Clair de Lune. You've somehow committed a hate crime against Debussy. I'm improving. You've declared war on music. That evening I escaped to the garden. He found me anyway. Sat beside me, not too close, not awkwardly far. You really hate my piano. I hate what your playing does to innocent pianos. I wanted to understand something you love, he said, and for a second he wasn't smiling as widely. He looked earnest. I know I probably never will, but if something matters that much to you, maybe it's worth embarrassing myself. For a second I didn't know what to say. No one had ever willingly made themselves look foolish just to understand me. Luckily, my sarcasm recovered first. You succeeded. Spectacularly. He laughed so hard he nearly slid off the bench, and somehow before I realized it, I was laughing too, only for a second. But it was enough. I walked back into the house that night without feeling like I was trying to escape him. I wasn't looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. That would have been ridiculous. I just didn't mind the idea anymore. Chapter 4, The Coffee War. I made it exactly 2 days before Ren launched what I can only describe as an organized campaign against my emotional stability. It started with coffee. Large, black, no sugar, no cream. My order exactly waiting in the kitchen. Still warm. "Mr. Ashworth left that for you," Mrs. Delgado said. "How does he know that?" he asked. "Everyone. Mr. Graves, the driver, the gardener, all of them betraying me for a stranger with good manners. I picked up the coffee, smelled it. Exactly right. Ren appeared in the doorway. "Morning. Are you going to drink it?" Without breaking eye contact, I walked to the sink and poured the entire thing out. Mrs. Delgado gasped. Mr. Graves closed his eyes in silent mourning. "That was expensive," Ren said. "It was." "Then why?" "I wanted to." He stared at the empty cup. Then, to my complete surprise, laughed. "Okay, I'll try again tomorrow. No dramatic speech, no guilt trip, just see you tomorrow," and he walked away. I stood there holding an empty cup, somehow feeling like I'd lost. Day 2, hazelnut. I hated hazelnut. Poured it out. "Too sweet?" he asked, 10 seconds later. "Yes." "Good to know." No frustration. Just information, like this was some kind of experiment he was running on me. Day 3, I sighed at Mr. Graves. He's unbelievable. I believe the phrase is persistent. It's creepy. It's Tuesday. I took one sip, paused. It was actually excellent. Exactly how I liked it. "Where is he?" No answer. Mrs. Delgado suddenly found parsley fascinating. I finished the cup, then immediately remembered myself. "I still don't like him." "Of course not," said Mr. Graves, hiding a smile behind his newspaper. That afternoon I found Ren on the patio with a golden retriever puppy he'd somehow convinced the groundskeeper to foster. "You got a dog?" "He's visiting." The puppy launched itself at my leg, sat on my shoe, and looked up with enormous brown eyes. "Don't." Tail wagged harder. "I don't negotiate with cute." The puppy rolled onto its back, paws in the air. Dirty tactics. I scratched behind its ears. The tail became a helicopter. Ren smiled quietly, not triumphantly, just happy, like watching me pet a dog was somehow the best part of his day. That was dangerously endearing. That evening, Noah found me in the library. "What do you actually think of Ren? He's weird. He smiles too much. He talks to everyone. He remembers things he shouldn't. He can't cook. He voluntarily embarrasses himself. He fixes his own car and thanked the delivery driver yesterday. None of that bothers you." "No. That's because you're describing a nice person." Noah stood, patted my shoulder, and delivered the sentence that would haunt me for weeks. "You keep trying to figure out why Ren likes you. Wrong question. The real mystery is why you keep noticing everything he does." Then he walked away, leaving me alone with a book I'd stopped reading, and a question I suddenly wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. 3 days later I found wildflowers on my piano, not imported. Not arranged by some florist with a blue checkmark. Just wildflowers, the kind people actually stop to pick. A note underneath. "Thought they reminded me of your mom's garden. Ren." How does he even know she had a garden? "You mentioned it once," Mr. Graves said from behind me. "You were 16. You complained she loved flowers more than she loved symmetry." I remember saying that. He remembered hearing it. I left the flowers there, not because I wanted them. Because throwing them away felt mean. Completely different reason. Definitely. The next morning he was waiting outside the conservatory with a lunchbox Mrs. Delgado had packed under threat of poisoning his pancakes and a note tucked inside that read, "Not yet beside the cookies." I texted him one sentence telling him to stop monitoring my eating habits. He sent back a selfie from an elevator, thumbs up, captioned mission accomplished. I laughed out loud in the middle of music history and told the guy next to me it was a cough. 2 days later, he tried something new. He stopped trying. No coffee, no flowers, no texts, just gone. Business meetings, Mrs. Delgado said, not looking up from the stove. By Wednesday, the mansion felt quieter, not emptier. Quieter. I caught myself in the kitchen 4 times for no reason, asked Mrs. Delgado if he'd called, and immediately regretted every part of it. He asked if you'd eaten lunch, she said. I told him you had, and that you'd asked about him. I'll make your favorite pasta tonight, she added, before I could finish threatening her salary. Bribery. It usually works. By 5:30, the piano sat untouched, and the silence had a shape to it. I sat at the bench, played one chord, and it came out sounding lonely, which had never happened before. Then the front door opened. Voices. The puppy barked once, and before my brain caught up with my legs, I was halfway down the staircase. Ren looked up from the foyer, face lighting immediately. There you are. I was doing cardio. On the stairs. Noah, arriving behind him with a backpack, took one look at the two of us and grinned like he'd won something. I think he missed you. I did not. The puppy sprinted past me straight to Ren's ankles. Traitor. Mr. Graves, without lowering his newspaper, murmured, Nature is healing. Mrs. Delgado called from the kitchen. The entire household, dear. I pointed at the puppy. You don't even know what we're talking about. It wagged its tail anyway. Buried under all my sighing was something quietly terrifying. For the first time in years, coming home felt like someone had been waiting for me. A small envelope, no flowers attached. 2 tickets to the Philharmonic Gala, front row, center, the seats every donor in the city had been trying to buy for a decade. How did you get these? My family's sponsoring part of it. Why me? He shrugged, easy as anything. I figured if anyone deserved to hear it from there, it'd be you. Thank you. It escaped before I could stop it. Ren actually froze. You just... I did. You've never voluntarily done that. I have. No, said Mr. Graves, walking past with press jackets, not even looking up. Traitor. I told him I didn't know. He nodded, no pleading, no guilt. If you decide not to, I'll still enjoy breakfast with you tomorrow. Then he left, the way he always did, leaving room for me to choose instead of waiting for me to perform. That evening I sat at the piano and played a Chopin nocturne, softly, not for anyone. Halfway through I noticed him in the doorway. He hadn't interrupted, hadn't applauded, just listened. When I finished, he said, Can I tell you something? You usually do. I think that's the loneliest piece I've ever heard. Most people said beautiful, he said lonely. My fingers froze on the keys. It sounds like someone waiting, he said, for something they don't believe is coming. I looked away first. You're reading too much into it. Maybe. Or maybe I've been listening. I pulled the tickets out of my pocket. I'll go. Really? Don't make this weird. I'll try. You won't. He grinned. No, I definitely won't. As he walked away, I caught myself watching him go, and for the first time, I didn't bother hiding the smile that followed. 4 hours before the concert, my bedroom looked like a department store had exploded. 3 tuxedos on the bed, 1 on the chair, Mr. Graves standing in the wreckage with military patients. The black, maybe. Noah walked in, took one look, and grinned. Why do you look like a billionaire Barbie? You've changed outfits 5 times, used product, and moisturized. My skin gets dry. Kai, you have a crush. I have a concert. He left still laughing and paused at the door to say, unhelpfully, You look nice, and you're absolutely doomed. Ren stepped into the foyer in a black tuxedo, no tie, top button undone just enough to look relaxed instead of careless. He froze when he saw me. Wow. It's just a suit. No, he said, and his voice went quiet in a way I wasn't ready for. It's you. The drive lasted 27 minutes. He spent 25 of them looking out the window, which I appreciated more than I'd admit. Around minute 26, he asked, When you're nervous, do you always straighten your cuffs? I dropped my hands immediately. I wasn't nervous. You've adjusted them 11 times. You counted? I get bored in traffic. At the concert hall, his tie had come slightly loose on the walk in, one side longer than the other, the kind of thing a valet would fix without thinking. Without deciding to, I reached up and straightened it, tucking the silk flat against his collar. He went very still. "You're not wearing a tie." I noticed. "Then why fix it?" "Habit," I said, which wasn't true, and stepped back before he could see my face do anything else. Whispers followed us through the lobby. "That's Kai Bennett, and that's Wren Ashworth. Are they together?" Which I ignored on principle. The conductor shook my hand, glanced at Wren, and said, "Good work," to which Wren, honestly baffled, said he hadn't actually done anything. "Sometimes," the old man said. "Showing up is enough." Our seats were absurd, front row, close enough to watch the musicians breathe before the hard passages. When the lights dimmed and the first note bloomed into the hall, I forgot the audience, the rumors, even him. By the second movement, I felt something brush against my arm. Not a hand, just our sleeves barely touching. Neither of us moved. It would have taken less than an inch to pull away, and neither of us did. For reasons I couldn't explain, that tiny point of contact felt louder than the entire orchestra. Intermission produced champagne, tiny desserts too expensive to eat, and Ethan Brooks, rival pianist, professional pain in my neck since we were 12, reaching for the same chocolate tart I wanted. "You poured his coffee down a sink," Ethan told Wren delightedly. "Everyone knows." "I've accepted that," Wren said, laughing. Then a bell rang, a waltz started, and I took one strategic step backward. Wren didn't ask. I hadn't asked him not to. It was, briefly, a workable arrangement, until Mrs. Holloway, the 80-year-old chairwoman of the Philharmonic Society, arrived and informed us we were dancing whether we liked it or not. "I don't actually know how to waltz," Wren confessed, once we were standing in the middle of the ballroom with no way out. "I watched 3 videos in the car." "You learned dancing from YouTube?" I panicked. He kicked my shoe on the 3rd step and apologized so sincerely, I laughed out loud, the real kind, and somewhere around the 40th second of not stepping on me, he stopped watching the room and started only watching me, not checking who'd noticed him, just looking. Like this clumsy little waltz was the best part of his whole evening. My chest did something warm and uncomfortable and quiet. For the first time, the question in my head wasn't, why does he like me? It was what would happen if I let him. The ride home was comfortable quiet, rain racing sideways across the glass. "You forgot I existed for almost an hour," he said, not offended, just observing. "I like watching you listen. You get lighter. You stop carrying whatever it is you're always carrying." I didn't know I carried anything. I don't think you do either. The next morning, Wren was at the stove in an apron that said, "Kiss the Cook, Mrs. Delgado's gift," and launched a pancake directly into the ceiling, where it stuck. Nobody moved. The driver wandered in, looked up, said, "Impressive?" and Mr. Graves informed Wren he had personally challenged gravity and lost. I laughed before I could stop it, loud enough that Wren's whole face lit up like he'd won something bigger than the pancake war. That afternoon, Noah declared my personality needed fixing and forced Mario Kart on all 3 of us. I drove into the same banana 3 laps running and accused it of judging me. Wren, from the opposite couch, confessed he'd hit it twice too. "Maybe it's an aggressive banana." By the time Noah left, the living room was soda cans and dead controllers and 1 pancake still stuck to the ceiling, and when Wren started apologizing for the mess, I told him to leave it. "Why?" "It makes the house feel less expensive." He didn't answer right away. When he did, it was almost a whisper. "Yeah, I think it does too." A week later, I won my 7th competition in a row, and told a reporter, honestly, that I was probably the best young pianist in the country. Professor Ellison pinched the bridge of his nose. Outside, Wren was leaning against the car with a coffee he'd driven 40 minutes to bring me, black, no sugar, correct, for a 15-minute performance. "What does winning feel like?" he asked on the drive home. "Short," I said. "The applause lasts a few minutes, then you start preparing for the next one." "Doesn't it get lonely?" I didn't answer that one. At home, the newest trophy had nowhere left to go. Shelves, cabinets, glass cases, already full. My father called to say the board was pleased and I'd represented the family. well and hung up before I could say anything back. I stood there holding the phone like it might explain itself. Ren picked up the trophy, didn't hand it to me, didn't say anything encouraging. He set it on the floor, beside the piano, not in any of the cases. What are you doing? I figured this is probably where the things that actually matter should go. I looked from the trophy to the piano to him. Nobody had ever understood me without me explaining it first. It felt better than winning ever had. Nothing happened on the Tuesday I'm about to tell you about. That's the whole point of telling you about it. Ren had a rare afternoon with nothing scheduled, which meant Noah predictably declared it movie night and refused to leave until we agreed. We ended up on the long couch in the east sitting room, with a bowl of popcorn Mrs. Delgado had seasoned better than she needed to, watching something forgettable that none of us could name a week later. Somewhere around the halfway mark, Noah fell asleep sitting up, mouth open, phone still glowing in his hand. Ren didn't. He just got quieter, heavier somehow on my side of the couch. I didn't notice exactly when his head found my shoulder, only that at some point it had, and he'd gone soft and unguarded in a way he never let himself be when he was awake and watching me watch him. His hair smelled like the cedar soap from the guest bathroom. I could feel him breathing. I sat very still, partly because moving would have woken him. Mostly because I didn't want to. I did not, for the record, watch the rest of the movie. I have no idea what happened in it. I was doing important, unrelated calculations about how long a person's arm could stay in one position before it went numb, and concluding that the number was apparently indefinitely. Later that evening, Noah gone. The puppy walked. The house gone quiet. I decided we needed actual food, not popcorn, and Ren decided that meant a walk to the little market 4 blocks from the house, the one with the good bread, and the owner who always overcharged us, and always threw in a free pastry to make up for it. The street was busier than usual. Somebody's delivery van had double parked. People were spilling around it, and for one unhurried second the crowd pushed us close enough that his hand brushed mine, knuckles, then fingers, close enough that closing the last half-inch would have been nothing at all. Neither of us did. We just kept walking, hands swinging an inch apart the rest of the way, both of us apparently fascinated by the storefronts. "You're doing it too," Noah told me the next morning, when I made the mistake of describing the evening like it was nothing. The not holding hands thing. I've heard about it. People do it in movies right before they hold hands. We were carrying bread. Uh-huh. I didn't have a response to that, mostly because he wasn't wrong, and I caught myself, mid-argument, mid-sentence, smiling about it before I managed to stop. Noah, delighted, did not let that go for the rest of the day. 3 nights later, the house had gone properly quiet, staff finished for the evening, Noah home, the puppy asleep in its ridiculous raincoat by the door. I found Ren in the kitchen at 11 at night attempting, against all evidence of his own competence, to make something involving flour. What is this? Bread, theoretically? Flour had gotten onto the counter, the floor, and somehow the ceiling fan, which was now lightly snowing on both of us. A streak of it sat across his cheekbone, entirely unnoticed by him. "You have flour on your face." "I have flour everywhere. It's a system." I reached over and brushed it off his cheek with my thumb before I'd decided to. He went still under my hand the same way he had at the gala when I'd fixed his tie, like he'd learned not to move when I did something like that, in case moving broke it. "Thanks," he said, quieter than the joke deserved. "Don't get used to it." Too late. Later, bread abandoned to whatever fate bread deserves after that much mishandling. He wandered into the music room and sat down next to me on the piano bench, not across from it, not standing in the doorway listening the way he usually did. Next to me. "Can I ask you something you're going to say no to? Statistically likely. Play something. For me. Not because I asked to hear it, because you want to play it." I told him that wasn't how it worked, that I only played things that had already been chosen for me. Competitions, recitals, judges, my father's version of pride. He didn't argue. He just waited, patient in the way he always was, like he had nowhere else in the world he'd rather be sitting. So I played something that wasn't for anyone. A few bars my mother used to hum around the house, half remembered. No sheet music, Nothing I'd ever performed because it wasn't good enough to perform, it was just hers, and now, apparently, a little bit mine. When I stopped, he didn't clap. He didn't say beautiful. He just said, "That one's better than the loneliest one. It's not finished." "Neither are you," he said, which should have annoyed me and somehow didn't. I don't mind waiting for the rest of it. I looked at him for a long moment, flour still in his hair, sleeves pushed up, watching me like I was the only interesting thing in a house full of expensive, interesting things, and felt something in my chest give up a little of the ground it had been holding since I was 9 years old, and told him to go away. I didn't say any of that. I said, "Your bread is ruined. Completely ruined. We should probably order food." Probably. He didn't move to get up. Neither did I. For the second time that week, I caught myself smiling before I could stop it, and this time, when he noticed, I let him see it anyway. People imagine disasters as loud. Explosions, screaming, sirens. The truth is, they usually begin with something unbelievably ordinary. It was a Tuesday, tomato soup weather, Mrs. Delgado's rule, no exceptions. I came down at 11, hair still damp, and she put a bowl in front of me before I'd finished pretending I wasn't hungry. Wren carried the puppy in wearing a tiny yellow raincoat it hated with its whole small body, and Mr. Graves, lowering his newspaper just enough to judge it, admitted it looked rather distinguished. The puppy ignored Wren completely, walked straight to my chair, and put one paw on my knee until I surrendered a piece of toast. "You spoil him. He extorted me." Noah burst in without knocking, per tradition, with actual news for once. "Professor Ellison wanted me at the conservatory. Today. An hour later I was standing in his office holding a folder I couldn't quite process. The International Young Artists Tour. 12 pianists chosen a year, 6 months, every major hall on 3 continents. I'd wanted this since I was 14. "It starts next month," Ellison said, "if you're accepted." I found Wren in the music room when I got home, still terrible, still practicing anyway. I held up the folder. "I got nominated." He was on his feet and across the room before I finished the sentence, and then his arms were around me. A real hug, warm, instant, completely unplanned. I forgot how to move for a second. Then, almost without deciding to, I hugged him back. When we pulled apart, he looked embarrassed. "Sorry, I got excited." Neither of us mentioned that it was the first time we'd ever done that. The rest of the day drifted by exactly the way ordinary days do. Rain on the windows, bread in the oven, the puppy chasing Noah's shoelaces, Mr. Graves pretending not to smile. The kind of day you don't know you'll spend the rest of your life missing. Around 6:30, Mrs. Delgado frowned toward the kitchen. "That's odd. I don't remember leaving the oven on." Then, from the kitchen, not loud, just confused, "No." Then louder, "Kay." I was already running. Smoke, not food, thick and grey, curling out from beneath the oven. Mrs. Delgado reached for the handle and Wren caught her wrist. "It's too hot," and something inside the wall cracked, and then everything happened at once. The lights flickered. The oven door burst open in a roar of flame. Heat hit us like a wave. "Everyone out now." Mr. Graves was already moving people toward the door. Noah grabbed Mrs. Delgado. Wren scooped the puppy up. I turned toward the back hallway and heard it, crying, faint, upstairs. The gardener's little girl, Cassie, had been coloring in the upstairs sitting room while her father finished the hedges. She was still inside. "There's someone upstairs." Wren grabbed my arm. "Kai, the fire's spreading, we have to go. She's still in there. I'll go." "No, I know the house better." I was already running before he could argue. Smoke swallowed the staircase. Heat pressed harder with every step. "Cassie!" A tiny cough, then. "Mr. Kai." She was curled under a table, terrified. I dropped to my knees, pulled her against me, wrapped my jacket around her. "I've got you." "We're going." I turned back toward the stairs. They were gone. Flames raced across the ceiling where the hallway used to be. We weren't getting out that way. Glass exploded somewhere behind me. Heat rushed across my back. Cassie cried harder. "It's okay," I told her, and for the first time in my life I genuinely wasn't sure it was true. People ask sometimes if I remember the pain. I don't, not really. Pain fades. What stays is the sound. Cassie was shaking too hard to hold on to properly. The hallway behind us was just fire now. Think. There had to be another way. The balcony, it overlooked the east garden, 2 stories down, too high to jump with a child. Unless. The glass doors were locked. I grabbed a chair, told Cassie I was sorry and swung. Cold rain rushed in. For one glorious second I could breathe. Below, people were already gathering. Security, gardeners, someone yelling into a phone, someone dragging hoses across the lawn. Then, Kai! Ren, directly below the balcony, rain soaking through his suit, soot streaked across his face. I'd never seen him look scared before. Really scared. There you are. Is she all right? She's fine. The stairs collapsed. We're getting a ladder. There isn't time. Something cracked below us. The room shuddered. A section of ceiling came down where the hallway used to be, and the flames surged higher, and Ren looked at the balcony, then the ground, then back at me. Kai, throw her. I'll catch her. She's too high. I'll catch her. Cassie clung tighter to my neck. I don't want to. I knelt in front of her. Cassie, look at me. Do you trust me? A tiny nod. Good, because I trust him. I pointed at Ren. He's going to catch you. He's stronger than he looks. I've been practicing. Ren called up, entirely too pleased with himself. I carry flour sacks now. Even here. Even now. Still trying to make a frightened little girl laugh. It worked. Just enough. She managed something close to a giggle through the tears. Close your eyes, I told her. I'm going to count to 3. You don't have to be brave. You just have to hold on. She nodded against my shoulder. I stood her up on the railing, Ren moving into position below, hands raised, eyes never leaving us. I've got her! You hear that? I whispered. He's got you. 1, 2, a beam cracked somewhere behind me, heat washing across my back. 3. I threw her. For one endless second she hung there in the rain, too small, too far. And then Ren caught her, the impact nearly knocking him flat, and he recovered, dropped to one knee, held her safe against his chest while the crowd below erupted. He looked up. For one heartbeat, everything else disappeared. Kai, now you! I looked behind me. The room was almost gone, smoke swallowing the ceiling, fire already in the curtains. I climbed onto the railing. The drop looked so much farther than it had a minute ago. You can make it. I've got you. You can't catch both of us. I'll find a way. Of course he'd say that. He always believed that if he wanted something badly enough, he could fix it. I bent my knees to jump. Then the balcony gave way beneath me. I remember falling. The world turning sideways. Rain, smoke, fire, sky. Then something burning slammed across the right side of my face. White. Blinding, a heat beyond anything I'd ever imagined. And I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. And the world went to light and then to nothing. The last thing I heard before everything went dark was Ren screaming my name. Not once, not twice. Over and over, like if he just said it enough times, I'd find my way back. Darkness doesn't feel empty. It feels heavy, like sinking to the bottom of an ocean you don't remember falling into. Sometimes there were sounds, crying, machines, footsteps, and then nothing again. Sometimes I dreamed. Mom in the garden, kneeling by the roses. You've been practicing. I have. You missed a note. I know. She stood, brushed the dirt from her hands, and looked past me like someone else had arrived. You don't have to do everything alone anymore. When I turned, there was no one there. When I looked back, she was gone, then arguing, real and close. He needs rest. I know. You've been here 36 hours. I said no, a chair scraping back, footsteps fading, then just breathing, not mine, slow, uneven, like someone who'd fallen asleep sitting up, and a hand around mine, holding on like letting go wasn't an option. I tried moving my fingers. Nothing. Tried again. Something. The hand tightened instantly. Don't. That voice. Hoarse. Exhausted, Ren. Opening my eyes hurt. Too bright. Everything blurred to white until his face resolved out of the light. He looked terrible. Hair a wreck, a bruise on one cheek I'd never noticed. His shirt slept in more than once. Kai? His voice actually cracked. He laughed, then wiped hard at his eyes. You idiot. You're awake. A nurse hurried in, checked the monitors, shined a light in my eyes. You've been unconscious for 6 days. 6. The word barely made it out of my throat. Water. Ren was already reaching for it before she'd finished the sentence, and held the cup like she'd handed him military orders. It tasted like the greatest invention in human history. She gave us 2 minutes and left. "You look awful," I managed. I was going to say the same. His smile trembled, and for one terrifying second I thought he'd cry again. Instead, he looked down at our still-linked hands. "I thought I lost you." I squeezed his fingers barely. It was enough. His eyes lifted. "Sorry." "What?" "I scared you." "No." He shook his head slowly. "You don't get to apologize for running into a burning house to save a little girl. I'd hate it, I'd scream, I'd probably run in after you, but yes, I'd still let you do it again." Outside, rain tapped the window. It had been raining the day everything changed. It was raining now, too. Mr. Graves knocked and stepped in, and stopped the instant he saw my eyes open. For the first time since I'd known him, his posture actually broke, shoulders down, relief written across his whole face. "Young master, welcome back." "Morning. It's 4 in the afternoon." "Close enough." A small smile. "Yes, I suppose it is." Then he turned his face away, just for a second, long enough to compose himself before becoming the unshakable butler again. I finally understood he hadn't stayed because it was his job. He'd stayed because he loved me too. The doctor had kind eyes and the sort of smile people practice before delivering bad news. He checked my vision, touched my left cheek, I felt it, then my right. I could feel a little. He made a note and pulled a chair closer. Nobody pulls up a chair to tell you something good. The burns were severe. 2nd and 3rd degree. The surgeons operated twice. We were able to save your vision, both eyes. Relief hit before I even knew I'd been afraid of that. You also fractured your shoulder and several ribs and inhaled a considerable amount of smoke. But you're alive. Alive. Such a small word for what it was supposed to hold. "There will be scarring," he said. "We won't know the final appearance until you're fully healed. There are reconstructive options, grafts, laser treatment. We'll discuss all of it when you're ready." Ready, like something you could schedule. "Can I see it?" The room went very quiet. "Not today. The swelling's still significant, and we've found patients cope better if changes are introduced gradually." "You're saying it's bad?" "I'm saying it's a lot." After he left, nobody spoke. Eventually, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. "My father." Ren's smile faded. "He knows. He came once, about 20 minutes. He'd had meetings." I laughed, it hurt, and asked about the flowers on the windowsill, expensive white lilies with a printed card that said "Get well soon." "No handwriting." "Nothing. Can somebody move those?" He carried them out without a word, and the room felt easier to breathe in when he came back. The next morning, a physical therapist named Ava arrived, young, confident, entirely too pleased about the word standing. I lasted 4 seconds before collapsing back onto the bed, humiliated. "It counted," she said, writing on her clipboard, already promising to return. Later, staring out the window, I asked Ren the thing I hadn't been able to say out loud yet. "Don't let me see it, my face, until you think I can handle it." He came and sat beside the bed, took my hand, not because I needed help, because he wanted to. "I'll do whatever you need. But the day you decide you're ready, I'm going to be standing right beside you." I asked why. "Because I don't want the first person you see to be a stranger." For the first time since I woke up, I cried. Not from the pain. Because even now, when I couldn't bear the thought of looking at myself, Ren still looked at me like I was worth waiting for. Chapter 15, the wall didn't move. Recovery has a rhythm, medication, therapy, visitors, sleep, repeat. And after 4 days, I hated all of it. Ava showed up smiling every single morning, which felt deeply unprofessional. "Walking today." I offered a wheelchair as a counteroffer. Denied. 3 steps was the goal. I made 2 before my foot caught the walker, and I stumbled straight into the wall. "Who put that there?" Ren closed his eyes. Ava asked if he always did this. "When he's embarrassed," Ren said, and I informed them both that the wall had clearly moved, and that I expected them to keep an eye on it. Mr. Graves visited that afternoon with real clothes, and, with a completely straight face, asked my opinion of the hospital's walls. Ren had told him. Of course he had. The next day brought stairs, which I disliked on principle, and which Ren survived by telling me he'd once fallen down a flight at 15 while reading and walking at the same time. "You lost the argument," I said. "I did," he agreed, entirely unbothered. "By the 7th step my legs were jelly and I hated everyone, but I made it. That evening I finally talked the nurses into letting me sit in the hospital garden. Small, nothing like home, but there were roses, lavender, a tiny fountain. Ren sat close enough to catch me, far enough not to hover. A golden retriever came barreling around the corner, no leash, no boundaries, and climbed straight into my lap. It licked my chin, then, without hesitating even slightly, licked the edge of the bandages on my cheek. Its owner came running, mortified. I told her it was fine. After she led the dog away, I looked down at my hands. He didn't care. "No," Ren said quietly. "Neither did I." I turned. He wasn't looking at the bandages. He wasn't avoiding them either. He was just looking at me, exactly the way he always had. For the first time, I wondered if the person I'd been most afraid of all along wasn't everyone else. It was me. That night I couldn't sleep, not from pain, from one stubborn thought that wouldn't leave. A random dog had looked at me and seen a person. Not a scar, not a tragedy. Just someone sitting on a bench, and somehow that felt like the first crack in the wall I'd already started building around myself. 9 days after I woke up, the doctor said I was ready to go home. A week earlier, I would have given anything to hear it. Now it terrified me. The hospital had become safe. Nobody there stared. They'd already seen my worst days and never looked away. Mrs. Delgado arrived before breakfast with enough food to feed the whole ward, appalled by the very concept of hospital cooking, and the nurses gathered around like she was adopting them. Mr. Graves handled the discharge paperwork with military precision. Ava showed up to remind me I still owed her 12 stares, then told me, seriously, that I'd done well. "I've mostly complained," I said. "You did," she agreed. "And then you stood up anyway." The drive home was quiet, familiar streets sliding past like they belonged to someone else's life. When the gates opened, the whole staff was waiting on the front steps. Nobody clapped. Nobody made speeches. Mrs. Delgado just walked over and hugged me, carefully, and told me I'd scared them, and that we were never accepting apologies for surviving. The puppy arrived next, still in its ridiculous yellow raincoat despite the clear sky, and sat on my shoe like nothing had happened at all. I walked into the entrance hall. Same wood, same flowers, same wall I'd walked into before the fire, which I pointed at accusingly while Mr. Graves assured me it had been warned to remain stationary, and found, in the kitchen, the pancake, still on the ceiling, preserved apparently as a monument. "To failure," Ren offered. "To optimism," I said. "To physics." That evening, once everyone had finally stopped fussing, I wandered into the music room. The piano sat exactly where I'd left it. Ren appeared in the doorway but didn't come in. "You don't have to." "I know. I had it tuned," he said. "I figured when you're ready it should be waiting." I couldn't make myself walk toward it. Not because of my hands, because I was terrified that if I sat down the music wouldn't sound like me anymore. "I'm tired," I said, which wasn't true, and he knew it wasn't, and let me leave anyway. I glanced back once from the hallway. The piano sat alone in the fading light, waiting, just like Ren. Neither of them asking anything from me, only waiting for the day I'd be ready to come back. Recovery makes you overconfident. One good day and you think you're getting your life back, the next morning you can't open a jar. 3 days after coming home, I decided I was making my own breakfast, over Mrs. Delgado's loud objections, and reached for the toast with my still healing hand before Ren quietly moved it to a plate with the tongs. No comment. No pity. Just help that didn't make me feel broken. That afternoon, Mr. Graves found me outside my mother's old greenhouse, dusty glass, a few stubborn roses. "I've kept it maintained," he said, when I asked why. "Because she loved it." He unlocked the door and left me alone with the smell of damp soil, and a memory of her humming while she repotted flowers, telling me sunlight was good for musicians. Ren found me there, standing outside the glass rather than in it. "I wasn't invited," he said, when I asked why he hadn't come in. I patted the bench beside me. He sat. He'd found something behind one of the flower pots, a small envelope, my mother's handwriting inside. "Dear Kai, if you're reading this, Mr. Graves finally ignored my instructions not to snoop." I laughed through my nose. Ren said he thought she'd known him very well. You're probably taller now. Still stubborn. Still pretending you don't need people. One day, someone is going to love you in a way that makes absolutely no sense. Please don't push them away just because you're afraid they'll leave too. Being loved isn't a prize for becoming perfect. It's something ordinary people deserve every day, including you. Everything in me went still. Ren wasn't looking at me, he was looking out at the rain, giving me privacy even while sitting right beside me. She would have liked you, I said, before I decided to. Really? You would have made her laugh. That evening I stopped outside the downstairs bathroom, where a mirror waited that I hadn't faced since coming home. My heart started racing just at the doorway. Ren noticed immediately. You don't have to. I know. Stay with me. He moved beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched. I took one step toward the mirror, then another. One more, and I'd see myself for the first time. I closed my eyes, took a breath, opened them. For a second I didn't recognize him. Wrong hair, wrong skin, wrong everything. Then he blinked at the exact moment I did. Oh, the right side of my face was pink, tight, uneven, a scar disappearing under my jaw. My eyebrow wasn't quite itself anymore. Part of my hairline hadn't grown back. Not monstrous, not horrifying, just different enough I couldn't look away. So, I said, strangely calm. That's him. Ren didn't answer. He knew this wasn't the moment for words. I kept searching for the version of myself everyone had complimented, that photographers loved, that strangers stopped for. The one I'd built an entire identity around. He wasn't there. I look. The sentence wouldn't finish, not ugly, not broken. Gone. I spent 23 years thinking this face was the most important thing about me, I said. Turns out it was. It wasn't, Ren said, quiet and steady. I touched the scar. Unfamiliar under my own fingers, like touching someone else. I don't know him. I look in this mirror and I don't know who I'm looking at. Ren stepped closer, close enough his reflection stood beside mine. One untouched. One changed forever. You know what I see? I braced for handsome. He didn't say it. I see the idiot who ran into a burning house because a little girl was scared. I see the pianist who still counts how many times he's practiced. The guy who thinks bananas hold grudges. I see someone who spent years pretending he didn't need anyone, and still somehow made an entire household love him. He let that sit. The only thing that's changed is that now everyone else can see what you survived. You really mean that. Especially now. I closed my eyes because if I kept looking at him I was going to cry again. When I woke up, I thought the hardest part would be the pain. I was wrong. The hardest part is mourning someone who's still alive. Neither of us spoke, because grief doesn't need advice. It needs witnesses. I finally reached for the light switch, made 2 steps into the hallway, stopped. Ren, tell me something. If this had happened before we met, would you still have fallen in love with me? The silence was total. I almost regretted asking. He came and stood beside me, not in front, beside, exactly where he always chose to stand, and smiled the same smile I used to call annoying. I don't know if I would have fallen in love with you, he said, and my chest sank right before he finished, because I would have done it much faster. I called him unbelievable. He agreed. I called him an idiot. He agreed with that too. And I laughed, small, watery, broken, but real, and for the first time the man in the mirror laughed with me. The strange thing about healing is that it doesn't happen all at once. You think you've accepted everything, and then you drop a spoon or catch your reflection in a window, and you're right back where you started. The morning after the mirror, I didn't leave my room, not crying, just tired of trying. Mr. Graves brought breakfast, and, unprompted, told me a story about my mother, how she'd stopped looking in mirrors for months after she got sick, how he'd found her once staring into a bucket of water, deciding whether wobbly reflections counted, how she'd eventually stopped asking if she still looked like herself, and started asking what kind of person she wanted to be that day. Beauty is the easiest thing to lose, he told me, on his way out. Character is much harder. You inherited the correct one. That afternoon I found Ren in the garage, underneath his car again, allegedly fixing a clicking noise. He slid out with grease across his forehead and asked if I was okay. Maybe, I said. That's an improvement, he said. We sat on the concrete floor, not talking, until the puppy climbed into his lap uninvited. Eventually, he admitted the car wasn't actually broken. He just needed something to fix, because he couldn't fix me. Couldn't buy the right medicine or find the right surgeon and make any of this disappear. "And I hate that," he said. And for the first time since the fire, I saw that he wasn't okay either. He'd been carrying me so completely, I'd forgotten he'd almost lost me too. I took his hand, the same one that had held mine in the hospital. "You stayed," I said. "You didn't have to fix me. You already did the important part." He cried, quietly, like someone finally given permission. I pulled him in and held him as tightly as my ribs allowed, and the puppy wedged himself between us anyway, entirely too pleased with the emotional moment he'd interrupted. Love, I thought, sitting on a garage floor with a man crying into my shoulder and a dog who refused to respect anyone's boundaries, was never the grand gestures. It was this, showing up, staying, holding someone together until they could stand on their own again. It happened 3 weeks later, not because I was ready, but because I was tired of being afraid. Every day I walked past the piano. Every day I looked away. That morning, with the house empty, I stopped. "You're just a piano." It looked unconvinced. I sat, immediately stood back up, made it halfway to the door before calling myself a coward and meaning it. Ren was already in the doorway when I turned around. "About 10 seconds, he said when I asked how long he'd been watching. "I'm just looking for a book." There was no bookshelf in the room. Terrible liar, I agreed. "Stay," I told him. I sat again, and this time I stayed. My right hand felt tight, unfamiliar on the keys. The graphs had healed well, but they didn't move quite the way they used to. "What if I can't?" "Then we find out," Ren said. No speech, no encouragement, just that. The first note came out clear. The second, third, fourth, then a wrong one, and I flinched. "You've been making mistakes since I've known you," Ren said. "You just usually call it personality." I tried again, wrong, better, almost. My hands felt slower than they used to, clumsier, and the frustration built until I slammed both palms down on the keys in a furious, ugly cluster of sound. "I can't do this. I used to hear music before I even touched the keys. Now I hear nothing." Ren turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" "You said you couldn't. So I'll wait outside until you're finished proving yourself wrong." He left. Down the hall, unmistakably, Mr. Graves confirmed he'd been listening the entire time. I closed my eyes. Mom's voice, from somewhere in memory, "Don't play the notes. Tell the story." I stopped trying to play it perfectly. I played it honest. One simple melody she'd taught me at 7. No audience, no judges, no competition. Just music. The last note faded into the room, and one pair of hands started clapping, slow and gentle. Ren in the doorway again. Not applauding because I'd played well, applauding because I'd played at all. That evening I left the music room without looking back for the first time since the fire. Because I finally understood. The piano hadn't been waiting for the old Kai to come home. It had been waiting to meet the new one. The smell hit me halfway down the stairs, tomatoes, garlic, fresh basil. "Tuesday," I said, and Mrs. Delgado, without looking up from the stove, said she'd wondered when I'd notice. The puppy lay under the table, hoping gravity would eventually drop food into his mouth. Optimistic little criminal. She handed me a wooden spoon. "Stir." "You trust me?" "I trust the spoon." I stirred like I was performing surgery, which she informed me was intimidating the soup. Ren wandered in, took one look, and declared this a big day. "I've been promoted," I told him. "Don't make it weird." "I wasn't planning to." "You were absolutely planning to." She had me taste it. "It's missing something, a little more salt." And I thought about it. "Lemon." Ren blinked. She squeezed a little in, stirred, tasted again, and went very quiet. "I've been making this soup the same way for 17 years, she said finally. "I think you just improved it." That evening we all ate at the kitchen table. Instead of the dining room nobody liked, Mrs. Delgado, Mr. Graves, Noah, Ren, me, and the puppy, who firmly believed he deserved his own chair. Noah declared, around a mouthful of soup, that suggesting lemon was cooking. "It absolutely isn't," I said. Mr. Graves observed, with a completely straight face, that the acidity balanced the tomatoes, and admitted he watched cooking shows because they were calming. "I genuinely love this family," Noah said, and nobody corrected the word. Not even me. After everyone drifted off, Noah to work, Mrs. Delgado to the dishes she refused to let anyone else touch, it was just Wren and 2 mugs of tea in a quiet kitchen. "You've changed," he said eventually. "Not after the fire. You say thank you now. You thanked the delivery driver yesterday. You even thanked the puppy." "He brought me my sock." "He stole your sock." "He heroically returned it." I looked at him properly. The small scar near his eyebrow from catching Cassie, the circles under his eyes that hadn't fully faded. The way he stirred tea he wasn't drinking. He'd changed too. "Do you still buy cars for people?" He laughed. "No, I've learned. Turns out sharing soup with someone means a lot more than a sports car." Without really deciding to, I reached across the table and took his hand, not because I needed help, because I wanted to. Neither of us moved, or spoke, the kitchen light warm above us, and the rain tapping gently at the glass, and for the first time I understood I wasn't holding his hand to keep from being alone. I was holding it because this was exactly where I wanted to be. A month later, Noah caught me humming while Mrs. Delgado taught me to knead bread, which she insisted was therapeutic and I insisted was just aggressive hugging. "You always hum," she said, "when he's around," nodding at Wren, who very deliberately went back to his book like he hadn't heard a word. That night the fact stuck with me, not the humming, but that I hadn't noticed it. Somewhere along the way, Wren had become my normal. I found him at sunset in Mom's greenhouse. Roses blooming again, weeds gone. "Mostly Mr. Graves," he admitted when I asked. I supervised, professionally. We sat on the old bench and the silence between us didn't feel awkward anymore. It felt like home. "Why are you still here?" I finally asked. "The surgeries, the bad days, the nightmares, you've already done enough." "I never kept score," he said. "I do. I know. You bought me coffee, I threw it away. You came to concerts, I ignored you. You waited, I ran. You stayed." My voice caught. "Why?" His smile went small and honest. "Because I fell in love with someone who didn't know how to let people love him. I figured I'd wait until he learned. What if I never had?" "You would have," he said. "Even before the fire you were changing. You just couldn't see it yet." I looked at him. The grease that never quite left his watch, the tiny scar over his eyebrow, the man who'd stood outside a hospital room for 6 days and learned that presents mattered more than gifts, and reached for his hand. For once, I decided to be the brave one first. "Are you sure?" he asked, forehead against mine, eyes already closed. That question, more than anything, made me certain, because even now he wasn't taking. He was asking. So instead of answering, I closed the last inch myself. It wasn't fireworks. It was gentle, a little clumsy, like 2 people who'd spent months learning each other's hearts finally letting their hands catch up. "Don't make this weird," I said when we pulled apart. "I'm trying." "You're failing." "I know. I knew it." Noah burst through the greenhouse door with a watering can, having apparently been emotionally supervising for 8 months. The puppy barreled in and barked at everyone indiscriminately, and Noah held him up like a trophy to announce that love had finally defeated emotional constipation. Even Mr. Graves laughed. A little. Standing there with Wren's hand still in mine, surrounded by people who'd somehow become my family, I laughed too. Not because life had become perfect, but because for the first time it didn't need to be. 3 days later my father called, not to ask how I was healing, but because the board had scheduled another gala and wanted me there. "You represent the family well," he said. "Not I'd like to see you. Not I've missed you." Another appearance. Another photograph. For the first time I understood he genuinely didn't know another way to love. "I won't be there." Silence, sharper this time. "You've never refused." "I know. This isn't a request." For years that sentence would have sent me running to practice harder. Today it just sounded tired. "When was the last time you came to hear me play because you wanted to?" Real silence. Searching, not strategic. I don't understand the question. I know. It hurt less than I expected. "Goodbye, Father." I sat there afterward waiting for regret, for guilt, for panic. Instead I felt quiet, not victorious, free. Ren found me at the piano. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, really." He studied my face and let it go, the way he always did. He would have stayed if I needed him, left if I asked. Love, with him, never felt like a cage. "What now?" he asked, sitting beside me on the bench. I looked at the keys and answered honestly for the first time. "I think I'd like to live." A week later an email arrived. International Young Artists Tour. I stared at it, couldn't open it. Ren found me frozen in the study. "You're scared," he said. "Open it." "What if I didn't get in? What if you did?" I opened it. "Congratulations. Europe, 3 countries, 24 performances, 6 months. Everything I'd ever wanted, so why did my stomach sink?" "I don't want to leave," I admitted. Ren took both my hands, the hands that had once believed they'd never play again. "You spent your whole life earning this. Don't stay because you're afraid. What if things change? What if you stop loving me?" He laughed. "You really still don't understand me. I waited months for a man who poured my coffee down the sink. I think I can survive 6 months." He rested his forehead against mine. "Go. Come home. Then tell me everything." For the first time, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt possible. 6 months sounds like a long time until you're living it. Then it's airports, hotel rooms, concert halls, and the same face waiting on a screen every night. "Paris, did you eat?" "Eventually." "I'm ordering dinner." "You're in New York." "I know. I'm in Paris." "I have resources." Deeply unsettling, Tokyo, I answered the call still in my concert suit. "Sold out." I messed up the second movement. "You've told me that. You noticed? I watched the live stream at 3 a.m. You looked happy. Worth it." Rome. Mrs. Delgado appeared on the call to inform me I was too thin somehow from another continent and to eat. "Yes, ma'am." Noah sent voice messages that were mostly insults. The puppy once joined a call by stepping on Ren's laptop. Mr. Graves emailed weather reports because Italy apparently couldn't be trusted to forecast itself. It was ridiculous. It was wonderful. The final performance was New York, sold out, critics, agents, everyone the old me would have been terrified of. Tonight they were just an audience. Backstage, Professor Ellison asked if I was nervous. "No," I said. "I've heard you play before," he said. "That's either a compliment or terrifying." "It's both." Through the curtain, thousands of faces. Impossible to find anyone in. Until I found him. Front row, center, exactly where he'd sat the night of the Philharmonic Gala. Ren, with Mrs. Delgado, Mr. Graves, and Noah, who waved both arms like an inflatable dealership mascot, until Mrs. Delgado smacked him without looking away from the stage. Ren just smiled, the same smile from the first day we met, the one I'd spent months pretending annoyed me, the one I'd crossed an ocean to see again. "Please welcome Kai Bennett." The applause rose, loud and warm, and months ago I would have measured every second of it. Tonight I barely heard it, because before I walked on I looked at one person, and he didn't clap right away. He just met my eyes and placed one hand over his heart, the same silent gesture from outside the hospital. "I'm here." I smiled. Not for the audience. For him. I sat at the piano, closed my eyes, and for one heartbeat I was 7 years old again. Mom correcting my posture, Mr. Graves outside the practice room, Mrs. Delgado sneaking cookies, Ren playing the world's worst scales just to make me laugh. Every version of my life had led here. I played. Not perfectly. A mistake in the third movement, another in the cadenza. The old Kai would have hated himself for both. I smiled through them because music was never about perfection. It was about telling the truth. The hall rose to its feet. I bowed, then looked past the audience to the front row, where Ren was already standing, applauding, not because I'd played flawlessly, but because I'd finally played for joy. Walking off stage, I didn't think about reviews or headlines. I thought about going home. For the first time in my life, success wasn't the place I wanted to stay. Home was. The first thing I heard walking through the front door was Noah and someone mid-argument. "I'm home," I said, and got exactly 1 second of silence before Noah came flying down the hall and nearly knocked the suitcase out of my hands. The puppy, enormous now, still convinced he weighed 6 pounds, launched himself next. Mrs. Delgado appeared in the kitchen doorway to inform me the dog's appetite was clearly my fault, and the smell of tomato soup told me everything else. Tuesday, I said. Of course, she said. I wasn't changing tradition just because you went international. Mr. Graves took my suitcase, looked me over once, and said I appeared healthier. From him, that was practically a standing ovation. Where's Wren? Everyone looked toward the greenhouse. He was kneeling in the flower bed, hadn't heard me come in. You're pulling weeds wrong, I said, and he turned around, and for a second, neither of us moved. 6 months. Video calls hadn't been the same. Hi. Hi. You made it. I did. Hungry. Very. Mrs. Delgado made soup. I know, of course she did. We stood there smiling like idiots until he laughed. We kissed before you left. Are we supposed to? I didn't let him finish the thought. I walked over and held him. No hesitation. No permission needed this time. I already knew the answer. I missed you, I said when I finally leaned back. I know. You called every night. Right. I kissed him, soft, brief, until a loud cough came from the doorway. Noah, holding the puppy, informing us we'd been home 4 minutes and the greenhouse was mostly glass. Mrs. Delgado called us in for soup, and Noah abandoned us instantly. Priorities. Your mother would have loved seeing this, Wren said, looking around at the roses, the bench, the letter she'd left behind. I think she already did. That evening the kitchen was louder than ever. 3 servings insisted on. An accusation of a new accent I definitely didn't have, and Mr. Graves calmly reporting that the wall had remained stationary for the entire 6 months, a bit he'd apparently kept running the whole time out of pure commitment. After dinner I found the piano waiting where it always had. I played a few quiet notes, not practicing, just playing, until Wren came in with 2 mugs of tea and sat beside me without a word. When I finished the melody I looked over. Stay a little longer. He smiled the same smile that had started all of this. I wasn't planning on leaving. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, the same as it had the night everything changed. Only this time it didn't sound lonely. It sounded like home, epilogue, 6 years later. People still ask what the fire took from me. They never ask what it gave back. The puppy wasn't a puppy anymore. Old, lazy, opinionated, still convinced every chair in the house belonged to him. The greenhouse had become my favorite room. Roses climbing the eastern wall, Mrs. Delgado complaining loudly and often that they needed pruning. Kai! Your husband is encouraging the basil again. Wren, crouched in the herb bed. I'm complimenting it. It doesn't speak. You don't know that. He looked at me. See? She's bullying me. You probably deserved it. Traitor. The piano still sat in the music room, but it no longer ruled my life. Some weeks I played every day. Some weeks I barely touched it. Oddly, I played better now. Professor Ellison once asked why. I stopped trying to prove something, I told him, and he said he'd wondered when I'd figure that out. The scar had faded, not disappeared, just become part of me. Children sometimes asked about it, and I gave them a different story every time. Dragon, shark, time traveler. Noah insisted I was teaching kids misinformation. I insisted they deserved better stories than mine. Noah still showed up unannounced with too much cereal for someone living alone, still panicking in supermarkets after 6 years of practice, still exactly himself. That evening, rain tapped softly against the windows. Tuesday. Tomato soup, of course. Mrs. Delgado had refused to retire the tradition even after retiring herself, insisting we'd have starved without her. Nobody argued, mostly because she was right. After dinner, I wandered into the music room, sat at the piano, played a few notes, not rehearsing, just playing. Wren came in with 2 mugs of tea, exactly like he always did, and sat beside me without asking what I was playing. He never had to. Stay a little longer, I said when I finished. I'm exactly where I want to be. I reached for his hand, not because I needed someone to hold me together anymore, not because I was afraid, just because after all these years it was still my favorite place to be. If you'd met me before the fire, you'd probably remember my face. If you meet me now, I hope you remember something else. The music, the laughter, the soup, the greenhouse, the people who stayed. Because in the end, the fire didn't destroy my life. It burned away everything I'd mistaken for the reason I deserved to be loved, and what's left is the happiest man I've ever known. The end.